Welcome to Taj Tell 'em, and this is a special episode from Alhambra, California, in our new studio.
Jack's home.
And you can see we are a blank canvas today.
Not fair. Stay tuned, and you're going to see this space evolve. Right now, we're just calling it the Taj Motel, Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal. Well, so what are you gonna tell them today, T?
So I thought with the new year, it'd be interesting just to kind of see if you have any New Year's resolutions. One thing I heard about, which is interesting, is have you ever heard about a word for the year?
No.
So I got the concept from a friend of mine. So the idea is you use that word as like a heuristic or rule of thumb to help you make decisions for the entire year.
Like productive.
In a sense, that could be the word. So I'll give you an example. My friend, she worked a lot 2019. And so she was like, the word for 2020, fun. And so whatever opportunity comes, if it's fun, she'll do it. If it's not, she won't.
I feel like that word should apply every year.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, so
Okay.
what do you think? Based on how your 2019 went, what direction do you want to take 2020?
Experience.
Explain.
Experience in terms of I wanted to say experimental, just because I feel like this year, last year I made the decision to end my career as an accountant. I'm transitioning out of my other business, and 2020 I feel like is a good year to try new things and have new experiences.
So what's at the top of this bucket list?
So this is gonna sound interesting, and we really want to go around America. I feel like America is so big. Surprisingly enough, I want to really visit Cleveland, Ohio. Really want to see what the Midwest is all about. Nashville. Thought about like North Carolina or South Carolina, but just not sure exactly where we would go.
Let us know in the comments if you're from any of those cities.
Let
us know what to
what
see.
to do. What about you?
So word of the year. So my word of this year, and I'm still working on the word because whenever I say the word, people misunderstand it. Mm-hmm. So my word for the year is longevity.
Oh.
But when I say longevity, most people think, oh, you want to live long. And I'm like, well, yes, but that's not my word for the year.
That's my word for life.
No, fair. It's maybe another synonym could be lasting.
Okay. So let me try to guess this. You want to have longer lasting habits, or is it longer lasting experiences?
Well, maybe a little column A, a little column B. So where this is coming from is my 2019, a lot of new things.
Yeah, I
this
know.
podcast got into meditation. I mean, a lot of different, cheers, a lot of different things. Quick aside, one rule of etiquette I learned is that it's rude not to drink after a cheers.
Oh.
Did you learn that one?
No, I did not know that.
There's another one where I have to look you in the eye when I drink it.
That's really intimate.
True, yeah,
I like that.
But so 2019 tried a lot of new things, but 2020 I really want to focus in on just a handful of these things, and so that they can pay dividends in the long term.
I mean, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates both, when they were interviewed, what made the biggest difference in your life, and they both answered at the same time: focus.
No, fair. Because I was thinking a lot about, so for example, one of the things I'm thinking about applying this year, one word, is the idea of relationships. And so, Jack, you're one of my best friends. So I want to make a list of people that I want to make sure I see at least once a month. When you both do it, it feels pretty awkward.
I think it's when we both know about it.
No, fair.
Okay.
And so, it's something where, maybe for some of you guys watching this, you think once a month. I mean, I see my best friends almost every day, but here in LA, once a month, I mean, that's pretty special.
No, and also I think it also depends on your age group too.
Fair.
I mean, if you're in your 20s, you see your friends every weekend, you have all the time in the world, but after when you're 30s, you have a lot of responsibilities.
No, yeah, no, very true. A lot of demands on your time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also, me and Jack, we only live, less than 10 miles from one another. But
Man,
in LA
that's
traffic,
crazy.
it could be 2 hours.
I know, and we do the podcast together, and then like 3 months ago, for 3 months, we didn't see each other.
No, fair,
Yeah,
fair.
yeah.
Because just, work catches up to us, traffic patterns.
Family, life, everything.
And that's where I had the idea of making the list. And so it's something where I can at least bare minimum commit to once a month. I would love for it to be more than once a month.
I would love that too.
But bare minimum, I can't let it slip below once a month.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm glad that's the case. I'm glad I made the list.
Haha, no.
And you checked it twice.
There you go. Because, honestly, for my friends who I'm not that close with, the list is maybe once every quarter. I want to try to see them.
So then that means when you that must have been kind of sobering when you went through that list, huh?
Yes and no, because what it is, it's just me, I'm a big guy on data. So sometimes I think, oh no, he's a good friend. I see him all the time. And I'm like, wait a minute, when was the last time I saw him? And so it's something where, looking at my past performance, I'm like, look, let's be realistic here. Jack, I could definitely commit to once a month. Some of my other friends, just for whatever reason, maybe they live in Orange County, somewhere farther. Maybe once a quarter is all I can really commit to.
Oh, that's true.
Did you watch debates last night?
No, because Andrew Yang was not in the debates.
Protesting, boycotting the debates.
Well, also, I'm almost never impressed, except for when Andrew Yang speaks, because he actually talks about new things and interesting things. It's not just the fucking talking points.
Yeah, I just feel like, without Yang there, it just turns into squabbling. There's this whole, I don't know if you caught, I don't know if you caught any of the highlights or anything like that,
I did.
That whole, Elizabeth Warren saying, did you say a woman couldn't be president in 2018, Bernie?
And then I heard, and then on Twitter, she said, you know what? I'm just going to leave it at that because Bernie and I have a lot more in common than differences. I'm like, fuck that.
Why bring it up in the first place?
Exactly. It's like when somebody is like, hey, I hope, not to offend you, but nothing matters except for after the but.
No, fair. I mean, that's where, honestly, prior to this, I was a pretty, Elizabeth Warren with my number 2. But now, man, I don't know anymore, because this is the second time she showed very poor judgment.
Terrible. What was the first time?
Pocahontas.
Oh,
number one, what are you doing taking that DNA test? Why are you playing the game by Trump's rules? And number two, come on, what? Everyone knows Bernie Sanders, is a feminist, he's a progressive guy, so what, you're going to try to ding him off some conversation that may or may not have happened, that's so petty.
And that argument is terrible. The argument is, hey, Warren and Sanders are basically running the same platform. They're both very progressive. And if you support Bernie and not Warren, then you are sexist.
Yeah, and I just, it's a mind-boggling thing, that's something where this is exactly the kind of out-of-touch, stereotype that Democrats, are fostering by engaging in these kind of topics. You should talk about what the American people actually, care about. And that's why I feel without Yang there, no one's talking about the real issues.
Yeah. In besides Iran topic, what else was new? Medicare for all, corporate greed.
I would have loved to hear Andrew Yang's take on
Iran. Exactly. I think I kind of understand his take. It's hey, we shouldn't be unilaterally, or not unilaterally. The president shouldn't have all that power.
No, fair. That's something where Andrew Yang, that's where he thinks out of the box. Because, for example, he was also saying that the president should have a higher salary, but be forbidden from doing any kind of speaking engagements. Mm-hmm. And so, he has these fresh ideas that I feel the Democratic, debate stage was just lacking,
And it's the Democratic debate, it's they call themselves the Democratic Party, but it's they didn't want to poll people. They didn't want to release any polls. They were so bogged down with the impeachment process that they weren't doing good polling.
Yeah, because so just to catch everyone up, so the reason why Andrew Yang didn't make the recent debates is because they had two criteria again. One is the number of individual donors,
Which he met already.
Oh yeah, which he read
400,000, was it? Something like that.
Something like that. And so, but the second was he had to poll a certain number, I believe, 5% in national polls, and then I think 7% in like early voting polls. And Yang just wasn't able to meet that threshold, but partially it was because of just with the holidays, not enough polls were actually conducted during that time. And so Andrew Yang, as well as Cory Booker, so it's not just Andrew Yang saying that, hey, Democratic Party, why don't you do your own poll? So that we can have a little more apples to apples comparison here. And like, no, and they were like, no, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I want to ask you, why do you think the Democratic Party wasn't willing to conduct their own polls?
So I want to add one thing before I answer that is he actually did get 5% in like 16 other polls that the DNC did not count. Now, granted that they released the number of polls that what polls they were going to count or not. So I'm going to be generous on that one. But at the same time, my personal take is the media, the corporate media, they knew they cannot control Yang. And so if they cannot control Yang, they cannot control the narrative. If they cannot control the narrative, they can't control the people. Because hate makes people watch the news.
No, fair. I mean, so what do you think Andrew Yang would say that is so dangerous?
So dangerous. He's gonna unite the people. I mean, he's just gonna make. I want to hear your take on it. It sounds like you have more of a deeper thought about this, but in my opinion, it's just he makes so much sense. There's so much reason. He brings both sides together. You've never seen a Republican say, I'm actually, and this actually happened, I feel okay telling you that I'm a Republican at Andrew Yang town hall, and because it's Andrew Yang. I mean, if he was saying that he was a registered Republican at a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, he would be lynched.
No, fair. Because Andrew Yang doesn't engage in tribalism. And so that's exactly what Elizabeth Warren was engaging in, where it's just like, oh, you guys like women, right? Well, look at Bernie. He doesn't like women, so come on, let's jump on this tribal, bandwagon. And it's something where I would hope the American people are smart enough to be like, I don't give a shit about that. I care about the issues, and that's where Andrew Yang, he's really smart, where he's saying, like, for example, even climate change. Andrew Yang cares deeply about climate change, but he's like, hey, at the end of the day, if you got the boot on your throat, you're not thinking about next year, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. You're thinking about tomorrow.
You don't fucking care about the koalas in Australia.
Exactly.
You want to know what I'm going to put on the table tonight.
Exactly. And so that's something where Andrew Yang has a very intimate understanding of the problems that are plaguing the American people.
No, I really agree. And I think he's talking about, like, for example, in the last debate when he was talking about nuclear power. He talked about thorium.
There you go.
Do you know what thorium was?
I didn't, that's the thing. I had to Google it,
Same here. What the fuck was thorium? And the rest of the Democratic candidates were like, what the fuck is thorium?
I got to take my phone out right now in the commercial break and Google this.
And that came from fucking Andrew Yang. Nobody else would be fucking talking about that.
Yeah, we need fresh voices, And so my theory, though, of why he was excluded from the debate, or maybe that's too strong words, but why I think that, they weren't willing to kind of acquiesce to a very reasonable request to just conduct, the same amount of polls as like previous like timeframes. I think the reason is one, and this is the least conspiracy angle explanation. Oh, we really need to coalesce around one candidate now. And so,
vote blue no matter who.
Exactly. Like they don't give a shit who it is as long as it's just someone who is has the D, the Democratic, party next to their name. And then now let's focus on Trump.
I don't want the D. I'm sorry.
But however, now to delve into more conspiratorial explanations. One I would say is perhaps the fix is in. Perhaps they already have the person in mind that they want to win, Joe Biden.
Yep.
And they're just like, you know what? This is our guy. We've seen, like this sounds conspiratorial, but look at 2016. Clinton was their woman from the get-go, and they tried to shut Bernie Sanders down. And I think the same thing's happening right now. Joe Biden's already bought and paid for. They have the receipt. They just want to just push their guy forward now.
There's a lot of money involved in politics, and corporate media makes a lot of money from these candidates. And if they are cozy with them, they know that they're always going to get press. They're always going to get coverage. They're always going to get donations, or the candidates are going to get donations. And where do the candidates spend that money? With the media.
No, fair. So then that there leads to my third conspiracy theory. And that's the idea that I think, initially Andrew Yang, they're like, whatever, he's a joke. But now they're like, what the hell's going on here? How is this guy still in the race? Andrew Yang even commented on it on the last debate. You're probably all asking yourself, what am I still doing here? And I think it's something where I think they're beginning to see him as a threat.
And he raised a lot of money in quarter 4 and quarter 3. 10 million in quarter 3 and 16.5 in quarter 4.
Oh yeah, and that's all through mostly like smaller donations.
$40 donations or something
exactly.
like that. And then the fucking MSN has the balls, or not has the ball, has no fucking brain. And they fucking put on, I don't know if you saw the graphics. They put on all the people who earn, all the fundraising amounts. They put a completely different Asian man.
What? What do you mean?
For Andrew Yang, they put a guy, his name is Jeff Yang. And Jeff Yang on his Twitter account, he says, just to be clear, I'm not running for president. People were fired for less than that kind of shit. And MSNBC, one of the most trusted media outlets, made this mistake. They called him John Yang before. CNN called his wife Emily Yang. And then MSNBC just recently said that they had graphics wrong. They called Andrew Yang a billionaire. Andrew Yang has probably one of the lowest net worth of all the peoples on that stage.
Yeah, with the exception of Pete Buttigieg.
That's correct.
And so that's something where, though...
But Pete Buttigieg is getting up there soon.
Well, his campaign has a lot of money.
I mean, that wine cave.
I know, fair. If Pete Buttigieg starts making paid speeches, then you know what happens. And so that's where actually it takes me to another conspiracy theory. So let me finish this one conspiracy theory. It's the idea that I think that larger companies, especially Google, Amazon, they're scared of the VAT tax.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And they're big donors probably to the DNC too. Of course.
Mark Zuckerberg, that's...
Fuck Zuck.
Exactly, because that's exactly who the VAT tax is going to affect. It's not, yes, everyday Americans like you and I will pay slightly more for some of the goods we're consuming, but we're not consuming $100,000 worth of goods a year. And so that's why I feel like who's going to take the hit the most? These tech companies.
Because you're going to pay VAT on that data.
Exactly. Every, Google AdWords click, every Facebook ads click, every Amazon purchase, sale, every Apple Music purchase or subscription. There you go.
So if you take what Andrew Yang says, he says, what's the new oil of the 21st century?
Marijuana. Right there. Boom. Right here, buddy.
Which is partly true. But really, it's tech, right?
Fair.
It's data. And if you look at history, look at what the oil industry has done. How they have made the tax law completely in their favor.
Yeah, why is oil subsidized in this day and age? It makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
Fair. ExxonMobil was the most valuable company for the longest time before Apple.
And then what's the and you said it.
And
What's the
now
most
Saudi Aramco is now the most valuable. So
but in America, what's the most valuable company?
Apple.
Apple.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the tech companies.
Well, I think it goes back to this is something only Andrew Yang is talking about. You know, they have to do it just because by the what you measure, you make. You know, and you know they need to provide value to their shareholders. But Andrew Yang's the only candidate talking about we need new metrics. We need to measure new things. You know, we need to measure human flourishing. You know, we need to measure life expectancy. We need to measure mental health, and we need to keep our government and companies accountable to these new metrics that are more accurate to the things we actually value.
And that's that. We don't want that, of course, right? We don't want people to be better. We don't want suicide rates to go down. We don't want anxiety to go down. Of course, we want Biden. We want the status quo.
No, fair. And I think that's what's kind of very tragic, you know, about, you know, I think seeing Andrew Yang miss this last debate, it made me realize that, you know, unless we, and I'm talking to you guys in Iowa, you know, do something about it, like this is a trajectory.
And also the people in New Hampshire, like you have to know, we're at a pivotal time in our lives in the political process. We can't let these guys win.
No, fair. What's interesting is Andrew Yang denied the debate. He picked up a new endorsement from none other than Dave Chappelle.
Yes, he's doing a show for him.
There you go.
Yeah, and Donald Glover.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Elon Musk.
There you go.
And he's got, I mean, if you look at all the endorsements that he's had, they're big names.
No, fair. And it's something where it's interesting looking at Andrew Yang's tweet thanking Dave Chappelle. He said, let's do this for our kids.
Yes.
And so it's something where, you know, obviously if you have the boot on your throat, you know, think about yourself. You know, I don't blame you. But hey, if you got a little bit of comfort, you got a little bit of what the Koreans call yeoyu, which is extra space, you know, then hey, let's think about longer term, you know, effects of what's going on right now.
And also, you know, honestly, if you have the means and you don't need the $1,000 a month, your neighbor's doing well means you're gonna do well.
No, fair. You know, and I think that's the thing. You know, the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about the freedom dividend is not for like myself. Although, yeah, extra $1,000
that'd be great.
That'd be great. You know, like I'm not gonna say no, but at the same time, I think the effect it'll have, like you know, communally, will be a game changer.
If you just look at, I mean, I know Twitter. I know a lot of people dismiss Twitter, but there's some truth in Twitter when you see it over and over. The type of effect some candidate has on people. You know, in the debate, he actually said, you know, he actually thanked Steyer for spending his own money.
What do you mean?
He actually applauded Steyer, said, hey, you know, people don't give him enough credit for his spending his own money to help climate change. You know, that should be something nice. He also said Booker is going to be back. You know, like he really liked Booker. He said he missed Kamala. You know, like he's the only guy that's like not doing it for the political points. He's like actually saying like he actually genuinely means these kind of things. He loves people, and I mean, how could you just not want somebody like that leading the country?
Fair, because that's where, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing Elizabeth Warren, because I do like Elizabeth Warren, but like, hey, if your policies are almost identical to Bernie, and what you got to resort to these like really like, you know, low blows, you know, like what are you doing? You know, that means it's your own selfish ambition. That's the only reason why you want you over Bernie. Mm-hmm. If there's no substantive difference between your policies,
either you have your own selfish ambitions or you're beholden to some people that you have to make these choices.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's in either case, it's selfishness. You know, it's not thinking about the greater good. You know, and that's something where, you know, it's interesting that as the race progressive, you know, cut the grass, the snakes will show. But now I'm going to land to my last conspiracy theory. I'm curious what you think about this. What role do you think race played or didn't play when it came to Andrew Yang not making this last round?
Race played or didn't play? So you're talking about Asian American, being Asian American.
If it was Kamala Harris.
Yes. Yes, I understand. I know I see what you're saying. There were a lot of people who were saying like, oh, the last Democratic debates was pretty much all white. And it's like, wait, no, Andrew Yang is not white. He's a minority. But like, oh, but he's Asian. He's not a minority because he's technically white because he's not black or brown. Like,
I didn't get that memo.
like what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, I know. I see what you're saying right now because Asian American identity can't. And I think Wesley Yang, who is a writer. Oh, did you read him? Okay. He talked about what was the book called? Something
Souls of Yellow Folk.
Yellow Folk. Okay. It's very easy to dismiss the Asian American identity because we're not black, we're not white, we're not Hispanic. Like we're not really anything. Because our community is so diverse.
True. Yeah. I mean, yeah, honestly, even the label Asian American is kind of a bullshit label.
That's true.
You're trying to lump like 20 different
I
countries.
mean, Russia is in Asia.
No, yeah, fair. Like, so it's something that we have no common language, like no common culture, like how are you going to try to lump us up together? And so,
But we eat rice. We all eat rice.
but what, like Latin American cultures eat rice.
That's true.
African
That's
cultures
true.
Eat rice,
That's true.
So it's something where, yeah, so that's something where, like, I just feel like they did give him that question in the last debate of like, oh, as the only person of color. But I just really feel like, where is the outrage, that he got shut out of this last debate?
No. If it's Kamala or Booker, yeah, that would be a different story.
And not one, I haven't seen one article, and that's something where, I mean, classic Asian fashion, I want to blame ourselves, where I'm like, oh, it's because Asians, we haven't been pulling our weight when it comes to civil rights here in America, but like, yeah, yes and no, like, I think it's something where, I've heard a number of Asian American advocates saying that, they constantly have to say, hey, Asian people are people of color too. Why do we have to,
say that?
Exactly. And I think it comes down to the fact that some people perceive that as Asians, we have certain advantages that other minorities don't have.
Look up the Chinese Exclusion Act. Look up the internment camps of the Japanese people. Like, there was the reason why your town has a Chinatown and all these good Chinese food is because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. They made sure, and even though it said Chinese Exclusion Act, it included anybody who looked Chinese. And if you looked Chinese and you were in America, you could not work. They will not hire you. It was technically illegal to hire you. And so what they had to do was they had to fucking make Chinese food and sell it to white people. And that was the only way they could have made money. And that's why when Bruce Lee came to America, the first thing that he had to do was to work at a Chinese restaurant.
No, fair. So like, hey, we had no special advantages, I think that just because we've all experienced, well, not all of us, but a lot of us have experienced some degree of success, doesn't mean that we had it any way easier. I think it's just something where, we should be, celebrated as an example of overcoming so much adversity, not as evidence that we don't have adversity. Like that's a very specious and ridiculous argument.
No, it's like you look at the result and you're like, oh, you're there, so that means it was easy for you. No, our parents worked fucking hard. We worked fucking hard to get where we are too. I mean, we worked like 100-hour weeks too. It's not like it was a walk in the park.
No, very fair.
Yeah.
And so that's something where, like that's it's unfortunate that, as an Asian American candidate like Andrew Yang just won't get the support from the people of color, because I do think, as Asians, like we're all in this together, along with, our Hispanic brothers, African American brothers, like I think it's something like we're all victims of, racial bias. And so, I think regardless of whether, you're Asian or not, just as a minority in this country, I think it would have been nice to see some support for Andrew Yang. And it's unfortunate it didn't happen.
Was that the final conspiracy theory?
That was the final conspiracy theory as of now. Oh, actually, this next one, Jeffrey Epstein.
He did not kill himself.
He's responsible for Yang not making the debates.
God fucking Epstein, man. So please leave in the comments. Let us know why you think Andrew Yang was excluded from the Democratic debates.
Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Taj Tone. Like what you heard? Go ahead and just smash that subscribe button.
Or give us a like, a thumbs up, anything to help. And make sure you turn on the notifications.
5-star rating on Apple Podcasts.
I don't know what the ratings are. Or Google.